Welcome to this in-depth analysis of an extraordinary period in European history. Today we'll explore the Counter-Reformation and the Baroque, an era that redefined the continent's course. We'll delve into the dynamics that shaped the culture, society, and spirituality of that time. We'll see how profound changes, from religious reforms to social transformations, left an indelible mark. The Counter-Reformation represents the Catholic Church's vigorous reaction to the Protestant Reformation. It was not a simple reaction, but a complex strategy of renewal and defense. Its primary goal was to reaffirm papal authority and Catholic doctrine. It also aimed to vigorously combat the spread of Protestant heresies, perceived as an existential threat. This historical period was characterized by intense reform within the Church itself. It was not just a matter of combating external forces, but also of purifying and strengthening the Church from within. The Council of Trent, convened in 1545 and concluded in 1563, was the pivotal event in this process. Here, the dogmas of the Catholic faith were unequivocally defined, clearing up any ambiguity. The council also reorganized ecclesiastical discipline, reforming the clergy and establishing seminaries for better training. It significantly strengthened the papal authority, making it more centralized. The impact of the Counter-Reformation was not limited to theology and ecclesiastical structure. It also profoundly influenced art and culture, powerful vehicles for transmitting its messages. The Church promoted a specific aesthetic aimed at arousing intense emotion and devotion in the faithful. It sought a beauty that elevated the spirit and moved the soul. Art became a tool of propaganda, celebrating the greatness of the Church and the sacredness of its rites. Each work was intended to be a hymn to faith, capable of reconquering hearts. The Baroque was born and developed in this context of Counter-Reformation renewal. It became the artistic and cultural expression that perfectly embodied the spirit of the age. Its defining characteristics were wonder, excess, and overwhelming dynamism. The Baroque sought to amaze and engage the viewer in every possible way. It manifested itself in all art forms, from imposing architecture to dramatic painting. Sculpture and literature were also pervaded by this new aesthetic. The primary goal was to emotionally engage the audience, transporting them to a dimension of devotion and wonder. The aim was to leave a lasting impression on the viewer. The Baroque style favored elaborate and complex forms, rich in detail and ornamentation. The skillful use of bright colors and dramatic contrast created striking effects. There was a marked emphasis on theatricality, with each composition designed to tell a story. The scenes were dynamic, full of movement and passion. The Baroque, however, was not just exuberance and celebration. It also reflected the complexity and profound contradictions of the time, an era of uncertainty and tension. It expressed the palpable tension between faith and reason, between the certainty of dogma and new scientific discoveries, a conflict that profoundly affected minds. It also demonstrated the tension between order and chaos, between the search for classical harmony and a fascination with the irregular. It was a style that embraced the grandeur and fragility of human existence. Torquato Tasso, with his epic Jerusalem Delivered, stands as an emblematic example of the era. His work perfectly embodies the tensions and torments of the Baroque. Jerusalem Delivered is an epic poem that recounts the events of the First Crusade, focusing on the conquest of Jerusalem. The plot is a blend of history, legend, and fantasy. Behind the grandeur of the events and the heroic battles lies a profound internal conflict. This torment is the true beating heart of the work, making it extraordinarily modern. Tasso's characters are often torn between duty and desire, between moral obligation and earthly passions, a dualism that reflects the anxieties of the times. The protagonist, Godfrey of Bouillon, despite being the leader of the Crusaders, is not immune to these struggles. He too must face temptations and moral dilemmas. Tasso's hero is constantly torn between his divine obligation to liberate the Holy Sepulchre and his human impulses. Love, temptation, and worldly glory clash with his sacred mission. This internal conflict makes Jerusalem Delivered a work of extraordinary psychological depth. It is not just a war story, but an exploration of the human soul. The work reflects the moral complexity of the time, a period in which the certainty of faith was being tested. The individual found himself navigating between opposites. It highlights the difficulty of reconciling the purity of faith with inevitable earthly impulses. The sacred and the profane meet and clash, generating drama and introspection. The influence of the Baroque was not limited to figurative art or literature. It extended to a new way of seeing and interpreting the world, transforming scientific thought. Galileo Galilei emerges as a key figure in this transformation. His work represents a fundamental shift in the approach to knowledge. With his revolutionary scientific prose, clear and persuasive, he contributed to the spread of a new vision, a vision based on observation and demonstration. His astronomical observations, made possible by the telescope, led to discoveries that challenged traditional notions. The Earth was no longer the motionless center of the universe. Galileo challenged the millennia old authority of the Aristotelian and Ptolemaic tradition. He paved the way for a new paradigm, that of modern science. He promoted a new approach based on empirical observation, experimentation, and mathematical reasoning. Nature was to be investigated with new tools and rigorous methods. His scientific prose was distinguished by its clarity and accessibility even to non specialists. He was a master at explaining complex concepts in an understandable way. This rhetorical skill contributed greatly to spreading new scientific ideas to a wider audience. It was not just addressed to academics but to the entire intellectual community. His publications stimulated lively and sometimes controversial intellectual debate. They questioned established certainties, opening up new avenues for investigation. His work led to a true revolution in human thought, forever changing the relationship between man and the universe. Reason and observation became the pillars of knowledge. The age of the Counter-Reformation and the Baroque thus reveal themselves to be a period of extraordinary transformations, an era in which the certainties of the past were challenged by new visions. It was a time when faith, reason, and art clashed vehemently, but at the same time merged. They sparked an explosion of creativity and thought. This complex interaction generated an era of extraordinary cultural richness, leaving an indelible legacy. Even today, it continues to inspire and make us think.